Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Groove Growth program. And I'm super excited and honored to have a very dear friend. We go way back in our entrepreneurial journey, way back. The CEO of Breakthrough Coaching, Dr. Mark Sanna. Mark, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate your spending a little bit of it with us.
Reggie, it's always great to be with you. What a pleasure.
Thank you, man. So I know that you weren't, you've become a monster entrepreneur. I get that. But there was a day when you weren't. So, you made the shift over that. Take us back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. How did it start? What made you decide, hey, I want to shift away from my practice and move into the entrepreneurial space?
Reggie, I think I always was an entrepreneur at heart. I can remember in grade school, I went to Catholic school, so there was never money for things to do. And so they would have us sell magazines or candy bars, if you know about those sort of contests. And instead of being a one by one, I organized my classmates. And we ended up deploying as teams out at the bowling alley and shopping stores out front. And we ended up absolutely crushing this thing. Was the most candy bars sold in the history of whatever. I think we won $1,000 and split it up among all of us. But I knew from early on that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I've always had a job, I think, from age 13. Always working. Through college, I was the head cashier at Kmart. I was the guy who did the void because I carried the key and picked which blue light special was going to be the special for the day. And fell in love with healthcare, grew up in a chiropractic family. My dad is a chiropractor. Shout out to my dad. My dad's 58th year as a chiropractor.
Wow.
Chiropractic's only amazing, right? Chiropractic's only around about 128 years. So he's a chiropractor for half the time chiropractic has existed, which is an amazing thing.
Wow.
And so he led a great example, healthy living, healthy eating. He's going to be 90 years old next month and still going strong, still gives a great chiropractic adjustment. And so following his example, I thought something in health. And so I did a pre-med undergraduate exam, wasn't so much in love with sciences, but more applied sciences like biology and nutrition. Those sorts of things really sparked my interest. And along with being a healthcare provider as a chiropractor, you're really an entrepreneur. You're the first to arrive, the first to leave, the last to get a paycheck, and everything that it takes to start up any other business. There's no difference in chiropractic, except for chiropractic has this great ecosystem of seminars and coaches and trainers and support. And that's one thing that chiropractic has really done well. And so I grew up traveling along with mom and dad all around the country to seminars and learning from some of the great people who made chiropractic really what it is today, turn it into a profession from kind of a mom and pop business. And so from a very early age, I knew not only did I want to be a chiropractor, but I wanted to be a chiropractic coach. And so graduated from college and shout out to New York Chiropractic College. Thank you for that. And went into practice with dad, hired a consultant to manage our practice. And was interesting because the guy who owned the company, he wasn't a chiropractor. He was a businessman. It was actually one of the top executives in Penguin Books. And he taught us what a spreadsheet, people don't tell you what a P&L is in chiropractic college or how to do any of that business stuff, right? And so he taught us all of that, and I fell in love with it. He asked me one day, what are your goals? What are your dreams? And I said, well, my dream is to be you. And so he's like, great, come work for me. And so I worked for Brian, who owned the company, for 3 years while I practiced full-time chiropractic. And that is, honestly, that was some of the hardest stuff that I ever did in my life, literally.
And how did you balance that? I mean, that's a lot. I mean, and
Yeah.
it is the entrepreneurial story. I'm doing this while I'm doing this, but how did you
Yeah.
balance between being a full-time chiropractor and working for this guy, learning a totally separate business at the same time?
Yeah, there was no balance. So I would wake up and literally shower. This was way before Zoom. This was on curly paper fax. You remember that stuff? It'd lay in the sun and turn black, right? And and I'd wake up, have my breakfast, and start coaching from 6. I'd coach from 6 till 9 a.m. From 9 till noon, I practiced. From noon till 3, I coached. From 3 till 7, I practiced. And from 7 till 11 midnight, I coached. And I did that for 3 years.
Wow.
And I realized I was doing all the work and Brian was making all the money. And so I invited him out to lunch and said, hey, Brian, here's an idea. How about I buy your company? And he's like, Mark, that's an excellent idea because I would really like you to buy the company. So this is back in the late 90s, in 98, right? And so I go to the lawyer, I'm going to buy the account, I'm going to buy this company. And they're like, you're nuts. What are you buying? There's no assets. There's nothing but contracts and talking on the phone. And I said, well, what I'm buying is my way out of my little small town, Danbury, Connecticut, that I grew up in and started my practice in. And I'm going to accelerate and start my dreams. And so I borrowed $1 million, which was a lot of money. I remember the day I signed the loan, I went into the empty church in the first pew, got on my knees, and I prayed, dear Lord, please, if you've ever been listening, listen now.
That's awesome. And, so great.
True story. And originally 3 years later, I had paid it all back.
Wow.
So we took the company from being just in the Northeast of the United States, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and we became a national company. I learned very quickly that in order to scale this business, I couldn't be the only coach. And so what I began to do was look for docs who were doing really well in that program and invited them to become coaches. And so we created a great revenue model because these docs could easily make 6 figures, good 6 figures in their own chiropractic practice. How would I get them to be distracted to do coaching? So you needed a certain type of doc who had an energy and an aptitude to coach. And then originally along came broadband and the internet, and that changed everything. And I began to assemble what is one of the most robust learning management systems, probably the most robust in the chiropractic profession, where every single lesson, everything you need to know to run a successful chiropractic practice is there in video recordings with self-tests. So everything from insurance coding and compliance to how to hire and do human resources to how to add other professionals. One of my specialties as my career developed was how to break down the silo between medical physicians and chiropractors who didn't play very well together in the same sandbox.
Mhm.
And so I was one of the originators in collaborative care and having medical physicians and physical therapists and chiropractors and nurse practitioners and PAs work together in the same practice. So this is now really the standard of care, collaboration between healthcare providers. Back then, certainly it wasn't at all.
Mhm.
So having that ability to capture this information, know that I could have a consistency of messaging through my coaches so that I knew they were teaching it the way I wanted it to be taught, was a real game changer for us. And it really helped propel us. It created great value for the company. I think I shared with you, we were involved in a private equity acquisition, and part of the valuation of the company, this is a big thing for if you're listening as an entrepreneur, is we did a couple of things. Obviously, we copyrighted our information. Everybody does that, right? You could certainly do that. However, what we did, based upon attending a seminar, and this is through the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, which is my current mentorship program that I'm in, I learned you can patent your process. So this process of training doctors in their practice, we were actually able to patent that. That added great value to our business. And in fact, we ended up being valued as a technology platform rather than as a service deliver. So as in a service industry, my multiple, or X, we call that the X. So my multiple, in other words, how they value that business as a service industry would have been 4 or 5X. And as a tech industry was actually 10X. So it was a big game changer from something back then was very novel, but now my recommendation is for anyone who's listening to this is document your IP, get it up onto an LMS, get it into a digital format so that you can actually consider yourself a tech platform. And so when it comes time for you to exit, you want to be talking all about that technology platform. And I don't care if you're selling real estate, you're a real estate technology platform. Selling used cars, a used car technology platform. And that was a very big accidental lesson and a big game changer for me.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, man. So take us back to you're signing on the dotted line for $1 million loan. As a young man, fairly early in the career, that's a huge thing to do, man. Huge. So how did you navigate your internal fears? Because everybody has fears and anxiety about taking a risk, right?
Yeah.
So I know $1 million risk is a lot bigger risk than a lot of people take, especially nowadays when getting online with your idea is relatively inexpensive. It costs almost nothing. But how did you navigate that? Because I'm thinking of all the entrepreneurs that are watching this and paying attention. How did you navigate the internal game, if you will, to being willingness of, I'm going to do this at a high level?
Yeah. I have always been, maybe to my detriment, a leap and then look kind of a guy. I have a great faith, my core values are my faith, my family, my ability to have financial freedom, my physical fitness, and having fun. Those are my core values. And so I always had a great faith that, all right, God, if you brought me this far, and as you know, Ridgely, anyone who's had success has also experienced failure. And it is not a straight path or a straight line. And there's times when things go great. And there's other times when life reels back and socks you in that solar plexus and takes the wind out of your sails. But I've always been very internally focused and internally driven, and have known really, and I'm going to go back to my dad and my family, my second core value is having great people around you so that when you're scared, when things go wrong, you can look to them. One of the greatest things, lessons that I learned is if you want to learn how to make $1 million or pay $1 million back, find somebody who's done that. You're not going to, books are great, books are important, but having somebody that you can call and somebody that you can talk to, who's actually a little further along the path than you are. And this is why I think mentorship is so important. I devote a portion of my week, every week, mentoring students, college students, is having those folks to go to when things aren't going so great. It is going to be the greatest gift you'll ever give yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The people who are the greatest, they will open their door to you, right? If somebody hides and has their ego and they don't want to share their whatever secrets with you, that's not the guy you want to learn from or the gal you want to learn from, right?
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned along the entrepreneurial journey, anybody who's been down this path has had some big highs and some big lows. Tell us about one of those catastrophes or real challenges that you faced. What happened? What did you learn from it? What did you take away from the experience of, OMG, now what?
Yeah, this is a tough one. So we were back in 2005-ish, I think it was. We received an audit from the IRS. And the audit went something like this. So we were doing seminars, 4 big seminars and 6 smaller seminars each year, 10 seminars a year. And we'd have anywhere from 100 to 400 or 500 attendees. And at these events, in the middle of the day, you got to feed these people. And so we'd put on a lunch, nice buffet lunch, everybody'd come. And there's a secret in the seminar business. People don't know you don't pay for both the space, the room, as well as the food and beverage. You pay for one or the other. So you got to feed the people. Why don't you pay for the F&B? By the way, that's a mistake. Don't do that. So turns out that I had categorized the F&B expense as a cost of business, a business expense. And it's not. F&B is written off at 50%, not at as a hard cost, which you would write off 100%, right? So the government came back and asked me for this. I didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't do it right. And so the government came back and had asked me. They went back 2004, 5, 6, and 7. So 4 years, right, with 10 seminars a year, and the cost of the taxes that they wanted back was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever found yourself in this type of a position, it's not the tax that you owe that's the problem. It's the fees, fines and fees and penalties that quickly add up. Not to mention, when you have an audit like this, your fees for your accountant would be very equivalent to what fees for a lawyer would be. So very quickly, I found myself back in the hole again, another $1 million. So down again. Here we go. True story. And it was a terrible time. And I got behind in the taxes, and it would be, and my accountant says, listen, you better prepare yourself. You're going to jail. And I'm like, oh my God. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to come, they're going to get you in, like, you're going out on a Saturday night to dinner, walking out your front door. They're going to cuff you and put you on the news and all that kind of stuff. And thank God Almighty that one of those mentors, God bless him, who was one of the people that I went to all along, so that they knew my story. They were there all along. Very, very, very wealthy man from North Dakota, actually wrote me the check. And I ended up paying him back. Took me years to be able to pay that back again. And he was my angel. And because of him, I didn't go to jail. I paid the taxes, and Breakthrough Coaching exists today because of the kindness and the great relationship that I have. He's about 85 years old today, and we still speak weekly, and is one of my dearest friends and mentors. And lesson there, make sure you have the right accountant.
No
and lesson two, keep that network close around you, because you may need them someday.
And what was the feeling like? I mean, tell me a little bit about the emotional ride for yourself of, first of all, because I've been audited and I've been there with you when suddenly your accountant says you owe 6 figures. Been there, done that, got that t-shirt.
Yep.
And you're like, what? How can that possibly be? You're having these whole, the not so much, for me, it wasn't a woe is me. It was more like a WTF, man. How did that ever even happen, that we got to this space where I have a 6-figure bill due, unexpected, freaking me out? You got to navigate that emotion and find a way to get to the other side of, I'm not going down. I'm not going to quit. We're going to figure this out. What was that part like for you? Because that's fascinating to entrepreneurs.
Well, as you know, when you go through something like that, or a lawsuit, which is another t-shirt in my closet.
Yep.
That's what you think about all the time, man. You're in bed at night. That's what you're thinking about. You're in the shower in the morning. That's what you're thinking about. And you have to be able to compartmentalize and take this, say, this is happening to me. It's not me. And put that in that box and do your job, and, keep your head in the game. Because it's really easy to get distracted and pulled down into that pit. And it is a pit, right? So not placing blame, just saying, all right, this is something that's happening, and I don't know how, but we're going to get through this, and you will. And it happens to everybody at some point in time. Something not great happens to everybody, whether it's health or an issue with finances or an issue with the relationship. It's part of life, but knowing that this is an experience that's happening, that you're going to go through, grow through, and it's going to make you. I'm a much better businessman today, having had to go through that, than if I had just had a straight line of success without road bumps and stop signs and all that kind of stuff. But one of my great help, solace, tools that I use is transcendental meditation, or TM. And I meditate since, this is interesting thing. Again, one of the joys growing up as a chiropractic kid, we were exposed to all sorts of really interesting things very young. And in 1975, my dad took the whole family to Mahesh Yogi, who was the yogi who taught the Beatles TM. And I got my mantra, 1975. I have not spoken that mantra out loud since then. And I meditate 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, no matter where I am. I could do it on an airplane. I could do it in a back of a seminar room, no problem. And that centers you. It clears the mind. It reconnects you to the energy of the universe. It gets you outside of your head and your thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been a great tool. I recommend, whether you do TM or something similar, but having time for yourself where you can hit the pause and focus on you and the bigger picture, because we're so busy running all day long. We forget that it's also important to stop, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And you know that I'm also a big spiritual practitioner. I've been chanting for, this is kind of dating myself, but literally in March, dude, it'll be 40 years, bro. 40 years that up this morning in front of my altar, 30 minutes every single morning. Got to do that thing.
Yes.
It's because I couldn't agree with you more, man. You raise your life state to go out and attack the day, whatever it is. So whether that's prayer, quiet, meditation, chanting, find something that works for you.
Absolutely.
So tell me, if you were to hone in on one or two characteristics of the successful entrepreneur from the wisdom of Dr. Mark Sanna, what would those one or two things be? Things that one would want to cultivate to become more successful as an entrepreneur. Share your thoughts.
Well, I think passion is the first thing. And when you can find something that you are passionate about, it's not work. It's not a job. You actually love it. And you go, they actually pay me for this? Are you kidding? And so find passion. And it's interesting that the things you are passionate about, you're typically pretty good at. The things you love, you typically love to do, you tend to maybe spend a little more time doing them, and you get an expertise on it. So follow your passion, let it lead you into what you can become an expert at, and then be a problem solver. Your job as a CEO, listen, your job as an employee is to be a problem solver, right? You're not hired for whatever skill set is on the job description. You're hired to see beyond that and actually solve problems. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you can identify problems that need solving that maybe somebody hasn't looked at in the way that you've looked at it, that's your unique ability. If you can do that, you're always going to be serving. You're always going to be adding rather than subtracting. You're never going to be chasing the dollar. I fully believe that money follows service. So if you're in service of solving people's problems, it's going to be a much easier path for you than if you're like, okay, what can I do to make a buck? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And so I know you've talked a lot about mentorship, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. I know you're mentoring folks, which is amazing. What has mentorship meant to you along your journey? And talk a little bit also, if you don't mind, about the fact that the right mentors are always open to serving. We shouldn't be afraid of asking for that help.
Boy, is that ever true, Ridgely? And a lot of us are embarrassed because we don't want to look less than smart. But I totally live by the motto that there's not one of us, not you, not me, not any one person who's as smart as when we come together. right? So to me, a very successful approach to mentoring is the mastermind experience. You know, Napoleon Hill, way back when in Think and Grow Rich, was when two minds come together and they focus a third mind called the mastermind that's greater than the sum of the two minds together develops, right? And so I've always surrounded myself. I have a group of individuals through my entrepreneurs organization group that we get together once a month, like clockwork. I haven't missed this thing, I think maybe once in 13 years, where we meet for 4 hours and we focus on whatever our highest priority issue is. Because sometimes you think it's a business issue, and guess what? It's headspace. It's a thinking issue, right?
Yep.
And so having a group, they say that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with the most, right? So pick your peeps carefully. Pick the people whose energy you absorb carefully. Have that advisory board or mentor group, and there's lots of them in the world. Everything from Vistage to EO, YPO, all kinds of support groups that are there. But don't try to do it alone. Remember my story of being able to have my angel investor come in and help me, George. That came from mentorship, right? From him being my mentor. And mentorship it's a two-way relationship. You have a responsibility to give back. You know, the Bible says to he much has been given, much shall be required, right? Mm-hmm. And so we want to know that the flow in the universe, it isn't just it's got to be through you and back out. If you realize that you're a channel for the energy into the universe, doesn't stop with you, flows from above you, through you, and out, you know that you have to participate in that flow by sharing what you've learned with other folks. I happen to love working with college students because it's like a blank slate, right? They're so smart. It just blows your mind how smart they are. And they also don't have any of the, preconceived notions that people might have. They can truly invent the wheel totally new again, right? So I get as much from that as I'm sure they do.
So tell us then, I love this question because you get a lot of unique answers and some that are kind of standard. For the entrepreneur, budding entrepreneur, or even down the track entrepreneur, 3 books that Mark Sanna would recommend that every entrepreneur ought to read, absorb, maybe even study, maybe read it once a year. Which 3 would you kind of gravitate toward?
Well, I have to say top number 1 on that list for an entrepreneur is a book called Traction. And that book is by Gino Wickman, mm-hmm. Traction. And he speaks about the EOS, or Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And it really teaches you how to go from strategic big picture, meaning core values, vision, mission, purpose, right? Into the tactical. Okay, what are the things that I want to accomplish in the next 3 years of my life? What do I have to do this year to be on track for that? What do I have to do this quarter to be on track for this year? What do I have to do this month, and then this week, and then this day, in order to make sure that I'm getting traction? My wheels are getting traction on the road. And it's a great book, no matter what industry you're in, what business you're in, that teaches you fundamentals that are tried and tested. And I recommend it super, super highly.
Awesome. There's
Yep.
one. What's number two?
You can't not do Michael Gerber's E-Myth. That's again a real eye opener when you have to learn that in order to be successful, you cannot just work in your business. You have to have time to work on your business. And what happens is so many of us are so busy working in the business, we forget that we have to set planning time and training time and growth time for that business. And I got to meet Michael Gerber. I'm not a super tall guy, but he's about my height, and we got along really, really great. So just loved it so much.
Yeah, his wife's a friend of mine. She's good. They're trippy
He's
people.
a character, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, man. Book number 3. What would that be?
7 Habits, right? Stephen Covey. 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Those are the 3 foundational books that those are my go-to books. The wisdom that's in those are going to serve you. And those are books that are worth going back to and reading again and again and again.
Yeah, I was really happy when I pulled out my E-Myth book and it was like ratty, and, old, dog-eared, whatever. That is, by the way, the book that is most recommended by entrepreneurs. It's 7 Habits is way up there. How to Win Friends, Influence People up there. Yep. But the E-Myth is number 1 by far. All right. So as we're wrapping this up here, fantastic dialogue. Thanks so much for your time. What would be the one nugget that you would want to convey to the budding or even the advanced entrepreneurs? Wisdom according to Mark Sanna. What would you want to share with everybody out there?
I think that the difference between success and just okay is the finest, thinnest margin ever. Maybe just percentage points, to be honest with you. And to have the work ethic, to go the extra mile, to stick with it, to be that first one in, the first one to leave, to be the person who is the go-to person in whatever the area that you're passionate about or excited in, is really, really key. But I'm going to tell you what, the entrepreneurs that I know work circles around the folks who are just coasting. So don't coast, be all in, right? Just jump in, get it done, stick with it. And my last core value is fun, Ridgely. So don't forget to have fun along the way, right? It's the journey. That's the fun, even the tough stuff. You're going to look back on that and say, man, those were the good times, right? So have fun.
Mark, thank you so much, man. Deeply appreciate you. Love you a ton, man. You're an amazing guy, incredible entrepreneur. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with the world. We're going to put it out there so that everybody can benefit from it. Again, my deepest gratitude, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy.